attempts to show what we know about life, to set the bounds of real truth as distinguished from phrases and self-deception. If I could, I would begin this book by telling you what life is. But unfortunately, I do not know what life is. The only consolation I can find is in the fact that nobody else knows either. We ask the churches, and they tell us that male and female created He them, and put them in the Garden of Eden, and they would have been happy had not Satan tempted them. But then you ask, who made Satan? And the explanation grows vague. You ask, if God made Satan and knew what Satan was going to do, is it not the same as if God did it Himself? So this explanation of the origin of evil gets you no further than the Hindu picture of the world resting on the back of a tortoise, and the tortoise on the head of a snake, and nothing said as to what the snake rests on. Let us go to the scientist. I know a certain physiologist, perhaps the greatest in the world, and his eager face rises before me, and I hear his quick, impetuous voice declaring that he knows what life is. He has told it in several big volumes, and all I have to do is to read them. Life is a tropism, caused by the presence of certain combinations of chemicals. My friend knows this because he has produced the thing in his test tubes. He is an exponent of a way of thought called monism, which finds the ultimate source of being in forms of energy manifesting themselves as matter. He shows how all living things arise from that and sink back into it. But question this scientist more closely. What is this matter that you are so sure of? How do you know it? Obviously through sensations. You never know matter itself. You only know its effects upon you, and you assume that the matter must be there to cause the sensation. In other words, matter, which seems so real, turns out to be merely a permanent possibility of sensation. And suppose there were to be sensations caused, for example, by a sportive demon who liked to make fun of eminent physiologists. Then there might be the appearance of matter and nothing else. In other words, there might be mind and various states of mind. So we discover that the materialist, in the philosophic sense, is making just as large an act of faith, is pronouncing just as bold a dogma as any priest of any religion. This is an old-time topic of disputation. Before Mother Eddy, there was Bishop Berkeley, and before Berkeley, there was Plato. And they and the materialists disputed until their hearers cried in despair, "What is mind? No matter. What is matter? Never mind." But a century or two ago, in a town of Prussia, there lived a little dried-up professor of philosophy, who sat himself down in his room and fixed his eyes on a church steeple outside the window, and for years on end devoted himself to examining the tools of thought with which the human mind is provided, and deciding just what work and how much of it they are fitted to do. So came the proof that our minds are incapable of reaching to or dealing with any ultimate reality whatever, but can comprehend only phenomena, that is to say, appearances, and their relations one to another. The person who thinks in absolutes and ultimates is led to believe that he has come to conclusions about reality, when, as a matter of fact, he has merely proved what he already wants to believe. If he had wanted to believe the opposite, he could have proven that exactly as well, as his opponents will at once demonstrate. The prison system. A man who takes up an absolute, God, immortality, the origin of being, a first cause, free will, absolute right or wrong, infinite time or space, final truth, original substance, the thing in itself. that man disappears into a fourth dimension and turns himself inside out or upside down or hindsight foremost and comes back and exhibits himself in triumph. Then, when he is ready, he effects another disappearance and another change and is back on earth, an ordinary human being. The world is full of schools of thought, theologians and metaphysicians and professors of academic philosophy, transcendentalists and theosophists and Christian scientists who perform such mental monkey shines continuously before our eyes. They prove what they please, and the fact that no two of them prove the same thing makes clear to us, in the end, that none of them has proved anything. The Christian scientist asserts that there is no such thing as matter, but that pain is merely a delusion of mortal mind. Once upon a time, we were told that the wind bloweth where it listeth. But now we are quite certain that there are causes for the blowing of the wind, and when our researches have been carried far enough, we shall be able to account for and to predict every smallest breath of air. Once we were told that dreams came from a supernatural world. But now we are beginning to analyze the dreams and to explain what they come from and what they mean. In many departments of thought, great specialists are now working, experimenting, and observing by the methods of science. If in the course of this book we speak of certainty, we mean, of course, not the absolute certainty of any metaphysical dogma, but the practical certainty of everyday common sense. The certainty we feel that eating food will satisfy our hunger, and that tomorrow, as today, 2 and 2 will continue to make 4.